Forget the old approach to Mideast peace, the one defined by piecemeal concessions. A new deal just forced a major terror organization to face its own, organizational suicide, backed by an unprecedented American security guarantee. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tearing into a complex stack of sources, focusing on the Trump administration's aggressive new strategy for peace in the Middle East. As we dug through these documents, what really jumped out at us immediately was just how fundamentally different the strategic levers are here compared to what came before.
Exactly. Our focus today is getting past the diplomatic jargon, We're extracting the crucial structural details, the actual mechanics designed to dismantle a major terror network. According to the analyses we reviewed, this approach signals a definitive commitment, ensuring the region never again becomes a safe haven for global terrorism.
Okay, so let's unpack the core difference in approach. When you look at the strategic goals of the two recent administrations, the divergence in strategy isn't just different, it's stark.
It really is. It represents what the sources call a pivot from negotiating from perceived weakness to negotiating from clear strength. If you look at the previous framework under the Biden administration, it was perceived as pushing for a deal that would essentially achieve Hamas's ultimate demands.
Right. And what were those demands specifically?
Well, they included wanting a total and final ceasefire, which would basically solidify their survival. Critically, the sources indicate that the previous administration was reportedly, fine with leaving Hamas in control of the Gaza Strip, and it demanded a complete withdrawal of the IDF, even from strategically vital spots like the Philadelphia corridor.
Okay, so a complete withdrawal. And what was the immediate sort of predictable result of that perceived willingness to concede on these fundamental security points?
Hamas had almost zero incentive to agree to anything quick. I mean, why would they? They simply held out, constantly seeking better terms, believing the deal would only get sweeter the longer they waited.
Makes sense. So here's the key insight then. What did the new framework do to completely change that equation?
Well, the core takeaway is that the Trump framework explicitly rejected Hamas's ultimate demands. That's the big shift. It ensures the ceasefire is temporary, explicitly designated as Phase 1 only, and it clearly states the U.S. does not accept Hamas controlling Gaza. This shift changed the cost of inaction for Hamas from, zero to maximum. It basically compelled them into the deal structure because the alternative was their total military elimination.
Oh.
It's a policy rooted in the concept of, peace through strength.
And we saw that firmness reflected in how the hostage situation was handled too, right?
Yeah.
The previous drawn-out negotiations were defined by those piecemeal releases over weeks or months. Agonizing. But this new framework promised Israel regaining all remaining hostages at once in the early stages. It just did away with that agonizing, drawn-out approach.
Exactly. That speed was essential for domestic support in Israel, no doubt. But here's where the trust was really cemented with their key ally, the critical security assurance. According to the documents we read, this deal was made palatable to Israel because the Trump administration gave a 100% assurance.
100%.
100%. That America would not stand in Israel's way, nor would it impose an arms embargo if the IDF needed to resume operations to eliminate Hamas in the later phases.
So a non-negotiable, open-ended assurance. American support for whatever is necessary to ensure the security outcome. That's huge.
Precisely. The national security officials apparently made it absolutely clear if Israel had to go back in and knock out the remaining pockets of Hamas, the U.S. would be 100% supportive. That explicit guarantee was the key to securing Israeli acceptance of the overall deal structure, especially since it allowed them to regain their citizens immediately while maintaining ultimate security control down the line.
Okay, this moves us from diplomacy to decisive enforcement, which is where it gets really interesting, I think. The sources state Hamas must commit to its organizational suicide, or at least its institutional castration. That's strong language. And if they refuse to disarm, the administration has stated the United States will lead the effort to disarm Hamas itself. So how will this actually be enforced on the ground? What are the specific mechanisms?
Right. It's not just talk. This is a complex, three-pillared strategy involving multinational forces and key choke points. The first pillar is the International Stabilization Force, ISF. The U.S. will lead this force, and it has already established a command center in Israel. They've deployed 200 troops specifically to run the coordination and command structure for this.
Okay, 200 American troops, but focus strictly on running the command and control, coordinating this massive international operation, not policing themselves.
Correct. And the plan mandates that the operational work The boots on the ground doing the actual policing as the IDF withdraws will be conducted by multinational forces. According to the documents, the expected primary operational partners are Egypt and Turkey.
Egypt and Turkey. Okay.
Utilizing their counterinsurgency experience and, local expertise to stabilize the territory.
So a multinational effort, but with Washington running the headquarters to ensure the entire operation remains focused on those stated security goals. But you mentioned the IDF wouldn't completely withdraw. Where do they remain? What's the key point?
They will maintain control of the Philadelphia corridor. That's the border with Egypt.
All right.
And this is not just a border, it's like the structural heart of Hamas's black market economy. Taking that corridor is like cutting the terror group's main financial artery. Before, Hamas used it as this massive smuggling thoroughfare for weapons, cash, dual-use materials, you name it.
Wow.
Controlling that choke point is the crucial structural element that dismantles Hamas's supply line, ensuring they cannot rearm easily, or at least not like before.
That addresses the military supply threat, but
Yeah.
I mean, we know Hamas is a master of reconstituting through financial means too, right?
Yeah.
Humanitarian aid theft, things like that. After previous ceasefires, they became experts at stealing aid to reconstitute their terror network, fund underground weapons factories.
How does the economic chokehold prevent that from happening again? Yeah, that's the second crucial layer of protection. The transitional administration must oversee massive reconstruction projects. I mean, everything from rubble removal to housing. And the key challenge is preventing remnants of Hamas from stealing goods and diverting them to their operations.
It's like trying to rebuild a city while keeping a highly organized criminal organization from stealing every single pallet of bricks or bag of cement.
That's exactly the challenge. So the administration of reconstruction aid will explicitly be handled by an entity that is not Hamas. That's explicit in the plan. The new system must be essentially theft-proof from the start, financially starving the terror group of the means to rebuild.
Okay, but who exactly is running this untested transitional governance structure? This sounds complicated.
It does. According to the plan laid out in the documents, an interim international body headed by President Trump himself, alongside dignitaries like Tony Blair, will oversee Gaza at the highest level.
Wait, President Trump and Tony Blair overseeing Gaza.
That's what the sources describe. And the day-to-day administration would then fall to a, quote, technocratic committee of Palestinians.
Okay, wait, is this administration model even remotely realistic? I mean, we're talking about inserting a technocratic committee under an international body led by the former president and Tony Blair in one of the world's most unstable regions. How do the sources assess the stability risk there? That sounds incredibly fragile.
Fragile is one word for it. The sources absolutely acknowledge this is a high-risk, untested, Washington-led model of transition. The inherent risk, obviously, is that any local group, even a technocratic one, will struggle for legitimacy if perceived as a puppet of an external, American-led command structure.
Tars?
The success hinges entirely on the capacity of those multinational policing forces, Egypt and Turkey primarily, to suppress residual Hamas activity during this very delicate political transition. It is, to put it mildly, the most challenging part of the entire blueprint, a huge question mark.
So, while the peace plan is ambitious and, rooted in strategic strength, the reality of this conflict's global economic impact is immediate and undeniable. It's hitting the pocketbooks of citizens around the world already. What does the financial data tell us about that?
Well, the conflict introduces extreme uncertainty and financial stress globally. That's clear. The immediate shock to energy markets was dramatic. The conflict caused global energy prices to surge almost instantly. Brent crude oil prices jumped by more than 8% in just 3 days. They went from under US $70 to nearly US $78 per barrel, just like that.
Wow. And that 8% jump in oil prices, that's not an abstract number for people listening. That translates instantly to higher costs for drivers, for businesses everywhere. It's a very sharp reminder of what's at stake globally.
It absolutely is. And the risk of further escalation remains like an anchor on the global economy. If the conflict intensifies and the Strait of Hormuz, that critical shipping lane, so much of the world's oil travels through there, if that's closed, the sources project oil prices could shoot up to US $100 per barrel.
$100.
That is the massive risk factor that central banks around the world are watching very, very closely.
And that spike in energy costs, it just spirals into macro financial stability concerns far beyond just the price at the pump, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The geopolitical turmoil adds significant pressure, leading to the threat of stagflationary risk.
Stagflation, the worst combination.
Exactly. It means we get the worst of both worlds. Your grocery bill keeps rising, that's the rising inflation, but the job market stalls out, that's the stagnant growth. This is driven by the geopolitical disruption and rising U.S. bond yields, which then push up global interest rates and weaken investment sentiment everywhere. The economic shockwaves are just, well, undeniable and immediate. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, so this deep dive has shown us a strategic blueprint for peace that explicitly prioritizes security and strength. It seems to replace ambiguity and negotiation with clear, actionable mechanisms for dismantling a terrorist entity and ensuring the protection of a key ally.
Exactly. You now possess the strategic framework and the critical details, not just the headlines, to understand the complexity of this geopolitical chess game. The key difference in this agreement, as we've discussed, is that unwavering assurance of security for Israel and the structural steps taken, like controlling key supply corridors, to eliminate Hamas's capacity for funding and military action.
So what does this all mean for the future? I mean, the most vexing challenge now seems to lie in execution, right? The plan calls for this interim international body led by Washington to hand day-to-day authority to a technocratic committee of Palestinians. Will this untested, high-risk governance model actually succeed in transitioning a war-torn territory into a stable, non-terrorist state? That is the real deep dive that lies ahead.